thanks to it. I'm happy to have again Wolfgang has been with us as an event for many, many years, but also with the project as a developer. So I already mentioned the JWT3. It's coming from his contribution, but then he has also a few other modules related to this NG112 or NG911 lost, and so extension for those that are in the space. Wolfgang, thank you for joining us again and giving us an update on this kind of continuous try to standardize in Europe this emergency calling infrastructure. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. And I need a coffee as well, so I'll be quick. Yeah, as Andreas already said, technology has changed. Yeah, now we're talking about AI bots and things like that. And in the last 25 years, also the technology that we use in our mobile devices has changed. So in the past, we had circuit switching, and now everything is changing to 4G, 5G, which is actually packet switching, which means when we do a voice call, it's voice over IP, so we have SIP, RTP, things like that. And even control rooms are changing now from their circuit switched interconnects to telcos to SIP interconnects or to SIP trunks. So which means that we have actually new technology at either end. But you may have heard that in some countries, some people or some mobile devices of inbound roamers cannot connect to emergency services. And that's, a tough thing and a very important topic right now at ENA, for instance. And it happens especially if 2G and 3G is being turned off. Yeah? So if you plan to join the World Cup in the US, perhaps you do a test if you can dial 911 in the US, if it actually works. And the big question is, so why is that? Yeah, and perhaps that's the answer for you. So who knows that? Yeah, there are a few people knowing that. It's from the 12th task with asterisk quite a long time ago, and there was task number 8, which was simply to retrieve permit A38. And that's actually happening right now in Europe because there is a kind of mandate from the Commission saying emergency communication needs to be packet switched. So that's the permit A38 thing. And they also say it needs to be accessible. So you need to have packet switching and you need to have means of accessibility. So it's audio, video, and text. And that's it. Yeah? And the member states are now asking their local regulators, okay, what technology shall we use? And the regulators are asking back to the Commission, okay, what technology shall we use? But there's no answer coming back, so it's just kind of loop that we have. And one thing, I don't know if you remember how this ended in Asterisk. So I think Asterisk just invented a new permit and just turned the sites, and all the others went crazy. And they said, okay, here's your permit and go. So one thing to get out of this loop is over-the-top applications. And over-the-top means, okay, I'm actually not regulated. I can install an application. And there are some countries already doing that. So this actually creates silos, and we don't get to that interoperability and that accessibility level we would like to have. So in the next, let's say, 15 minutes, I'm going to talk a little bit about this standards gap. So features like real-time text require this end-to-end protocol consistency I was talking about at the beginning. Or there's another challenge, is the callback challenge. So 5 to 10% of emergency calls require callback because the call was perhaps dropped or disconnected. And PSAPs in some situations cannot reach the devices. So again, if you are an inbound roamer and if you're not registered to the IMS, to the local one, they have no identity, they have no MSI stand to use for the callback. Yeah? So that's quite of a challenge. And then there's another thing, it's new connectivity layers. So we see more and more satellite technology, so direct-to-device SOS or emergency SOS. And there's another thing for accessibility, it's about relay services. And people are using that, and they would like to use it also for emergency communication. So we need to get those things into the NG112, NG911 framework. So let's start with the standards in emergency communication. So there are two ways how to deal with it. The one is the over-the-top, so you see it on the left. So actually, if you're a control room or a PSAP, you need to cope with all those things that are happening out in the wild. So if it's over the top, you may have to integrate with different applications. And if you want to do this throughout Europe, for instance, then you have to integrate all the applications that are around in Europe. On the other side, we can have a very clean solution, and it's the one that I'm always telling you since I'm joining the Kamailio world. It's ETSI TS 103479. So that's the framework document, or the foundation, the technical foundation, how to access emergency services. And that, if you would like, is something we can call an IP NNI to emergency communication. So that's an entry point that can be used by all originating network types. So assuming they are voice over IP based, which is actually happening everywhere now. This interface provides native audio, video, and text accessibility based on RFC 4103, which I think has its origin in T140, mentioned by Andreas. So the fax is also here in place somehow. And with this, we have a way to get rid of the proprietary over-the-top solutions, getting rid of those silos that work perhaps in a country but not European-wide. And there are three examples I would like to share with you. One is TS 103479, so it's free, available on the internet, just look it up. And it's the technical foundation. So it describes the interfaces, it describes, okay, how to provide location information, which codecs do you have to use, how do you set up a session, and how it's being routed to the most appropriate PSAP. Then there is a new one, which is still not published. We're currently working on that. It's TS 103873, and that can be quite interesting because it's extending a little bit the idea of the interconnect. So it's especially describing, okay, what do you have to do as originating service provider, being a web service provider or an MNO, if you would like to interconnect with such an infrastructure. And it also deals with the callback challenge. I'm going to talk about it later. And then also very important, because that has a different name, it's ETSI EN 303919. So that's a harmonized standard. And this one is currently out for review. So it's being looked at by each of the NSPs, the national standardization bodies, and they provide their feedback. And if that is done, I think, end of May, then we may have a harmonized standard throughout Europe describing accessibility. So this one is especially describing the functionality to fulfill the requirements for accessibility. So describing real-time text, describing video for sign language, and describing audio and all those things to get to the most appropriate PSAP, which for accessibility could mean that you select a PSAP with a call taker that has the capability to sign, for instance, or that has the capability to connect into a relay service and support a person in need. So the right thing is actually where we want to go and where we shall or should go. It's a clean solution, having one clear interface and then not those different types. Talking about this protocol consistency, we need some things that work end-to-end, and I just pick one example. There are a few others to make it work, like what I was saying at the beginning. If emergency communication doesn't work, it may be because the end device doesn't have the right profile. So there are GSMA profiles. You have to download that the device knows, okay, this is how I connect with an IMS, and these are the features I need to do, and things like that. So if that is missing, it doesn't work. And here's another example. It's about real-time text. So real-time text needs to be supported end-to-end, and it starts at the device. So the device needs to support it, and we do have already devices. So in Austria, I have 2 mobile operators that support, so I can actually text from an iPhone to an Android using different providers. So real-time text is there based on RFC 4103. But if we want to forward a call or transfer a call from one PSAP to another PSAP, we have a situation where there's a multi-party RTT session mixing going on. And if this is not supported by the UEs, they just could do it. There's a new RFC, I think it's RFC 9071, which would allow the device to act as kind of bridge and order the messages that are received or the character that's received into the right bubbles. So if this is not happening, we need something that does it instead of the UE, so it's then the bridge. So another important thing on another side, because it's on the service side, perhaps somewhere in ESI net provided by emergency services or emergency communication solutions. Then you may have already seen a session setup with an STP that has not just a single M line, but multiple M lines. And if you have audio, video, and text, you have 3 M lines. And some session border controllers just drop those things if they don't understand. So that's another problem. You need to be aware at any device that just forwards those things, that all the information is passed through, not only STP, but also some SIP headers that we need for emergency communication. And at the right end, there are PSAPs, so they need to support it as well. So currently there are solutions around which totally makes sense because it's currently a voice call. Solutions that just have a touch screen for call taking. So you just click on the screen, it's fast and easy, but it's not good for texting. And if you do real-time text, you perhaps use a keyboard, or you have some clever speech-to-text solution implemented. So however it's done, you need to be aware that there's a new technology, and even there has to be some look at the capabilities and some things that make sure that we have end-to-end consistent communication. Just moving on with the emergency callback. In the easy situation, you just register to your network. So there is something like a BCSCF, can be a Kamailio, and this extracts the user identity during the registration, and the user identity can then be forwarded to the PSAP. So the PSAP gets actually the MSI SDN, NEP asserted identity header, and in most cases it's 2 of them. One is just pointing, providing the tel URI, and the other one is providing a SIP URI. So the tel URI can be used to call back via MSI SDN or via the legacy world, via the PSTN, sorry, and that just means it's audio only. But with a new interface, you just get back to the PSAP using the same, like the inbound interface, and you can actually call back multimedia. So there's also the European Accessibility Act saying that you need to support the same media types in the callback that were received in the original emergency communication. So if someone dials in with RTT, you need to call back also with RTT. That means you have to use the IP interconnect back to the mobile network operator. Here's also an important thing. So emergency communication always does local breakout. So in the situation where you're in the home network, it doesn't actually care a lot. But if you're in a situation where you're roaming, like this one, so you're actually visiting another network infrastructure, and then it's local breakout is very important, because if you're interconnected or routed back home via ETSI home routing and do an emergency communication and it gets back home, then it might be difficult to provide you some help because you're actually in another country. So for that, local breakout is the answer. So emergency calls are always terminated local. And in some situations, you don't get that information about the MSI SDN for the callback. And this means, okay, you're not locally registered, so that's called unregistered situation, but you may have a data connectivity back home. So like this ETSI home routing, which is used there, that all your data services from home are being used. So your home network actually may know about your MSI SDN, which can be mapped using the EMI, for instance. So that the local network just knows the EMI if it's unauthenticated, but the home network can provide you some information for that mapping. So this was actually introduced also by ITUT recently, and we are currently working on that callback mechanisms in this new ETSI TS that I've mentioned that is being used for the interconnect. So if that works, so if you can get that information, if there are some roaming agreements that the visited network can ask at the PCRF of the home network, you may get that information back and can send it in the same way like before. So the PSAP can actually call back. The big difference here is, perhaps it's you cannot read it because it's too small. The big difference now is that the SIP URI, the host part, points to the visited network and not to the home network. And one can still use the PSTN as fallback because that number will be visible as well. So last but not least, there's another state which is the limited service, which means you don't have a SIM card perhaps, you don't know the provider doesn't know anything about you, you're not registered, but you receive an emergency invite because your device can always do an emergency communication. And for that, we propose something like a temporary identity, which is provided with a peer-asserted identity header, and then there needs to be kind of mapping of this temporary ID back to the IP address of the device or to the EMI. So we'll see how this will be described when the standard is being released. And then there's also another challenge is to keep the device on the same network that is being used for the emergency communication, because if you want to do the callback, you need to reach that device. So finally, if you get those things up to the PSAP, then the PSAP can do a callback, and there's a new element. Can also be a Kamailio, and perhaps that one is using JSON Web Token modules, because we can also sign the callback, or we shall actually sign the callback so that the MNO knows, okay, this is the call that is originating at the PSAP, so we can trust, so it's being signed. We're using steer shaking mechanisms here, so there is an attestation service and there's a verification service in place. So the one is within the infrastructure, within this OSIF, it's outbound call interface. And yeah, this helps the MNO also to set a certain priority for the callback. One can also show that the call is from an emergency service, so this can be shown at the display. And very important thing is you can also do the multimedia callback via this way. But again, it needs end-to-end consistency. We need to understand each other, and every element needs to know, okay, what to do. Moving on with new connectivity layers. As I mentioned, this kind of satellite SOS, which I think requires native integration into the NG112 system. So there are some reasons for that. One is currently it's more or less proprietary. There are some relay centers used today, so that you receive that message and then they look up some databases and figure out, okay, where is the PSAP, where I have to forward this, and that actually doesn't scale my understanding. So if this is used more often, you need some kind of scaling solution, which is then the NG112 system. The other reason is that those solutions always have a ground station. So if it gets by the satellite, it needs to be received at the ground station, and that ground station may not be in the country where the PSAP resides. So if I'm hiking around somewhere where I have no connectivity and the ground station is in another country, but I need a local PSAP, then I have to figure out, okay, how to get there. So that means we need to interconnect those NG communication solutions, or ESI nets, globally actually, and then everything works. Because you get the location, you can figure out, okay, where is the PSAP that is actually responsible for that region, and you can forward it to that. And that's just simple messages. Yeah. Currently, there's no audio, so you can have bidirectional messaging, but that's it. And also important thing which is quite new and which will be part of this harmonized standard I've mentioned before is to provide relay services wherever you are somehow, because relay services provide a fundamental accessibility service. So users are just calling relay service, and there's a sign interpreter helping them to connect to the government, for instance, or to the doctor, or also in emergency situations. And here the idea is that calls always get first to the PSAP, providing the location for routing purposes, but, and that's the new thing, you may find in the future a user setting in your device that allows you to set your preferred relay service. So it can be a kind of URI being stored there that just describes your relay service. And it needs to be in the device because it cannot be on the, let's say, provider side, because if you're roaming, you have no connection back home, that information may not be available. But if it's in the device, you can always send it, and the PSAP is automatically aware of that information. So it gets that additional information with the call setup, and with a bridge, you can then include this relay service in an emergency communication. So that would mean a video call where you have three parties: the calling person, the relay service, and the PSAP call taker. And two people are just signing perhaps, and the other two talking to each other. So that's the service people are used to, and that would, with such a solution, work anywhere. Yeah, because if you have connectivity to that relay service, it can be integrated. Yeah, just closing that to get the coffee. So I think by adopting this 103479 and implementing this harmonized entry point, we can make this accessibility native. So we don't need applications. We can use that stuff that is on the end device. We can have cross-border connectivity. So just sharing information among PSAPs, forwarding calls, bridging in the relay services, for instance, and we have a way for the callback as well. And last point is perhaps something for dangerous demos. So future innovation is also possible if we implement those 103479 spec, and that can be or shall be the permit A39 to get out of this place that sends you mad that I was showing at the beginning. Then thanks a lot, and happy 25th anniversary.
Thank you, Wolfgang. Okay, let's be quick. One or two questions about, we have Dragos.
Hey, Wolfgang. Thank you for the talk here.
Yeah. Hi, Dragos.
Hey, Wolfgang. So thank you for the talk. And while implementing voice over Wi-Fi, I observed that it has a lot of provisions for emergency services there. I don't know when they're going to come live, and I'm wondering about your thoughts on it, especially also for SIM card-less calls, emergency calls in that case, because it basically just comes over the internet. And who's going to provide the service directly? ESRP, or is the regulatory body going to I don't know, force the operators to do this for free or?
Yeah, yeah, thanks for that. A great question. I think that changing to that, and I totally forgot about voice over Wi-Fi. Yeah, thanks for that. Changing to that means that you need to have a kind of regulation or a kind of act that says you have to provide such an infrastructure, and this is the way how you interconnect. And recently there was in a conference in Riga, and there was a person from the Commission, and he was actually saying in a panel that even if the Commission does not require the implementation of these standards in a document or in an act, he said it's the technology that we need and that we are going to use. Yeah? So perhaps after a long time there's a shift into that direction, and then people understand, okay, we need to harmonize this, we need to make sure that it works. Otherwise we only can fall back to 2G or 3G, to make sure that it works, especially with those new things. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. One quick last question here, and then you can approach Wolfgang.
Thank you. Jan from Slum. I have a question regarding any plans you may be aware of regarding European Union implementing requirements like in the US, E911 services like Ray-Baum Act and Kerry's Law, which is quite challenging and also complex for the end user perspective and stuff like this. Is there anything that also enforces us in Europe to deliver the location straight away, direct details and stuff like this?
Yeah, in terms of location, I think everyone at the Commission already knows, okay, we need a solution for that, and the clear solution is here to have a location by value provided with a bit of flow in a SIP session setup. So that's actually coming from all the mobile devices right now, and you can use the same thing from other end devices if they get the location. In terms of regulation, I think perhaps we need to wait some time, because with that new harmonized standard, we have at least something that helps to make sure that everyone sees it in the same way, and that just states start to implement it in the right way, because they're just waiting for a document saying, okay, this is how you have to do it, and then they can force their providers to make sure how it works. The problem is, in the US it's easy, there are some things from the FCC, it's just one authority, and in Europe you have still the member states, and the Commission always delegates such things to the member states.
Okay, thank you everyone for the first session this morning.